And the phrase to put her in a state of amnesia was ocean
Water.
bacon,
Oh.
earth, air, fire. These are the 4 elements.
Cold Beet Soup is a podcast for casual fans who want to explore lore and fandom rabbit holes in music and gaming.
And are sad sometimes.
And we're live. I'm streaming this.
Hey, chat. Chat, we're cooked. Get it? Because it's Thanksgiving?
Did you see the Kai Cenat stuff that happened with the musician?
Music. Wait.
What? Not musician.
Magician?
Magician. Yeah.
Magician? Also, welcome to Cold Beet Soup.
Right.
It's our podcast where we talk about Kai Cenat. No, we're going to talk about Gorillaz, but I want to hear about this. No, I didn't hear because I know he's been doing the subathon.
Yeah.
He's streaming right now.
Mm.
I think it's how long is he? Is it for a month
I think so.
or?
I have no idea.
Okay, got it. Time. What is time anyway?
Right?
I'm like, I don't even know.
At work today, I was like, I don't even remember what happened last week.
Yeah. No, seriously, when because I just went to get my nails done, and she's like, "How long has it been?" I was like, I don't know.
Time, you know.
Time? So same. But there was a magician? Because I
Yeah.
saw he had that like Spider-Man guy, the
Yeah,
Miles
that was a
Morales
while.
guy.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah. I mean, time.
From my understanding, the magician, like they did like a pre like thing where like they like saw it. I don't know if they like pre-planned all the tricks and stuff, and last minute the dude changed it up where he pretended to hang himself.
No.
Yeah.
You can't do that, I don't
Yeah,
think.
no. Kai Cenat was
That's
like, I'm
not
gonna
a
get banned. The fuck?
Yeah. Did he get banned? I mean,
I
he's
don't.
streaming now.
Yeah, I
I don't know
don't
how
think
long ago
so.
was this.
Cause it was yeah, it's all over TikTok and shit, and
Oh, snap. Yeah, I didn't even know. Kai doesn't show up on my anything really.
I'll get like little clips
I'm
like when him and he had Snoop Dogg over.
I did see that. I did see a clip of that where he tried timing Snoop Dogg to roll, and he was like, "What time is it? 12:32." And he's like, "Okay, start timing." Okay. And like Snoop finished, and he's like, "What time is it? 12:32." He's like, "No, he's done." And he's like, "What?" It's like he rolled the blunt so fast. So that was pretty cool. He's had a lot of people on
Mm-mm.
for that subathon. So yeah, he's doing it different, that's for sure.
Yeah, more
Hats
power
off
to
to
him.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's got a lot of energy.
Mm.
Can't relate to that,
Well,
but
he is like 22, so I had more energy back
yeah.
then.
Yeah, that's true. Feels like so long ago,
Right?
even though it's really not, but it just feels like because I think that when you get older, as you mature a little bit, you kind of look back on your younger self and you're like, wow, I was a mess. Like not saying that I have it together now, but definitely back then I was like, wow, how did I not end up in a ditch somewhere? Like
Right.
how
That's
okay.
why I don't judge the younger generation, because it's like, yeah, I was a dumbass.
Yeah. Like I get it.
Mm.
And I was like, you guys will be tired one day as
Yep.
well.
Hmm.
Just wait.
I'm like,
That
ah,
time
nine
is coming.
o'clock, bedtime.
Yeah, I mean like I start work pretty early, so I mean I start work at 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gotta be in bed because, you know, uh,
No, I don't
it's
know.
just the thing. So yeah, I'm the same with the like 9:30, um sometimes, closer to 10, which I usually regret the next day when I do that, but I keep telling myself I'll stop doing that, but I don't. So you live and you learn, I
Yep.
guess. Or you don't learn. You don't learn.
You
I
just keep
I
doing the
one
same
day.
thing.
You just keep doing it, and one day I'll stop doing it. Anyways, so we're gonna Gorilla's backstory is a lot. Um, I could do it all at once, but it would be way too much. Um, there are 7 official phases for the band. And then I also had to cover their backstories, like all the characters and all that, how they all came together, and trying to do all that in one, I think would just be too much for one episode. I did also see a bit of a shift between like phase 1 and phase 2 and the rest of the phases. So I think it's a good stopping point. So today we're just going to talk about the 4 characters you see on the slide. So from left to right, we have Russell, 2D, Noodle, and Murdoc. And these are the 4 characters from the band. But I also wanted to like all the, because I watched videos, I looked at the wiki, but I also want to provide the context of like who made the band and kind of stuff that was happening more so. You'll see it more so in the second part, not so much this part, but there's some stuff like Damon Albarn, who's one of the creators of Gorillaz, like just likes to do side quests, it seems, and will like start different projects and such. And I think that has contributed to like why they either take a hiatus or stuff is not as like cohesive as you would think. So I think it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, we're going to talk about the characters, who the creators are, and then phases 1 and phases 2 today. And then next week we'll talk about phases 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Which sounds like a lot, but from what I was reading initially, the other phases aren't like as story heavy. Phase 3 is actually pretty story heavy, but some of the other ones aren't. Um, I think phase 3 is pretty heavy and phase 7 is pretty heavy, but the in between is kind of like eh. So that's why I think we'll be able to cover it all. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's one thing I do want to like put as a disclaimer is there are some pieces of information that I've seen different answers for from different people. So I'm just gonna bring up all the ones that I found, and you can just decide for yourself which you think is the correct one. I don't even know if there is a correct one. I just think it was messy.
Mm.
It makes me think of what's another messy one? Fortnite was kind of messy. Um, what was another messy one? It was like some of the lore, it's very like 21 Pilots, you can tell he thought about it.
Mm.
He thought about all this stuff. He built the world. Um, even Ghost, even though there was some stuff where um you don't get as much explanation, there's not so much like blatantly different answers. There's another one that we did that was kind of messy, and I can't remember.
I know Fortnite
That's gonna bother
definitely.
me. Fortnite definitely. Fortnite was I was like, what is happening? So yeah, there's some messiness here, but we'll get through it together. So let's talk about the creators. So you have Damon Albarn, who I've mentioned already. He's the one sitting on the right hand side. And Jamie Hewlett, who's sitting on the left hand
That
side. They're both
fedora though.
British. Yeah, that's just what he does. I don't know.
How do you know? So you've seen his collection of fedoras?
I I think I saw another interview where he was wearing a fedora. So,
Milady.
actually, it might have been the same picture though, because this I think is from that Vivo interview. So it might actually be the same fedora. So don't. I'm not 100%. It's so hard to tell. Like I don't keep track. Like I looked at so many different videos and things for this. Because another thing with gorillas that makes it kind of challenging is all the information comes from different pieces of media. Like they'll either have like stuff you can see happening in the music video, or they'll do their own kind of promotional stuff,
Mm.
and or like their website. So you just have to try to compile all that information, and since they started in like the 2000s, that's even harder because it's early internet days. So It added a layer of fun to it. But Gorillaz is a virtual band. All those characters you saw are, of uh, these two creation. So Damon Albarn, he is a musician and producer. He actually is. My friend told me about this because I told him that we were gonna talk about Gorillaz next, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Damon Albarn like is in Blur," and I was like, "I've heard of Blur, but I don't know." Blur is like a British band that Damon's in. He's like the front man for it. But I didn't know any of their songs. So they have a song called Song Number Two, and
Oh, yeah, I
which
know
you're
that
like,
song.
yeah, that one though. Woohoo!
Mhm.
That song. So that's them, and that's their like number one song. So that's one of the bands he's in. Um, he's done like other side quest things, but I didn't even compile a list because there's quite a bit. And then Jamie Hewlett is an illustrator. So he did a comic called, I think it was called like Tank Girl or something like that, but he's done like all the artwork for Gorillaz. So the way they kind of came together was both of them had very public breakups with their girlfriends, and they were like two single dudes living by themselves, so they decided to move in together. I mean, rent ain't cheap, so I get it. Roommate shit where they were just watching, TV one day. They were watching MTV, and they were kind of like heckling all the acts because they're like, "Oh, this is all like manufactured and fake and like we should make like a cartoon band. It won't be real, but it'll be like more down to earth and realistic than any of this crap." And then the next morning they're like, "No, let's do this for real." So Damon took like his musical background, and Jamie took his artistic background, and that's just how it came to be. So first point of contention that I found was the origin of the name Gorillas, because I found a couple different things. The first thing that I saw was like an interview that Jamie did where he said that they were both born in 1968. So that's under the sign of the monkey. So that's
Hey, I'm
a
Monkey.
where the name. Yeah, so they're like, "Oh, it's a sign of the monkey." And Jamie said, "Let's do chimpanzees." And Damon's like, "No, let's do gorillas." And he's like, "Why gorillas?" And he's like, "Oh, well, they're bigger." And then they added a Z because Jamie really likes hip hop, so he added the like edgy part of it. So that's what I read. There's also another thing that I saw where it was like based on like guerrilla warfare, where it's kind of under the radar because, these guys are not on the forefront. They have these cartoon characters on the forefront. And then in the uh backstory version with the characters, there's a whole other reason that I'll talk about. So that's another point where I'm like, I don't know, could be any of these things. Um but interesting name nonetheless. And without further ado, we'll talk about our first of the four, Mr. Murdoch. His
Beast
name is
Boy.
Murdoch. Yeah, he kind of does look like Beast Boy. That's so
Mhm.
funny. I never thought about that, but yeah, that's very true. Um, his he is the bass player, and self-proclaimed leader and founder of Gorillaz. His full name is Murdoc Faust Niccals. Faust is his second middle name. He changed his middle name, and we'll talk about that. It's funny that you mentioned Beast Boy because my next slide is what his character was inspired by, and Beast Boy is not on there. But the ones that the characters he was inspired
Oh,
by was yeah, Keith Richards, the guy on the far left. He's the Rolling Stones guitarist. Creeper from Scooby Doo, and Victor Frankenstein. Um, that's supposedly where his character came from. There's also, I saw in the wiki that a friend of Jamie Hewlett's, his name was Morgan Niccals. Apparently, he was Gorilla's actual bassist during Phase 2, so he helped inspire Murdoch as well. He's also supposedly loosely based on Damon Albarn, um, because they say that like a lot of the things that happened to Murdoch has also happened to Albarn. And then a fun fact that I saw on the wiki was that his clothing in each phase was inspired by Ozzy Osbourne, which I thought was really cool because I really like Ozzy Osbourne.
mm.
Um, The art style does change between the phases. I thought today it would be too challenging to cover it all, but maybe next week when we cover it and we like have a full picture of the story, like my at the end of the presentation I can kind of go through each one side by side and then we can kind of see the differences
Mm,
because I thought it might be too much right now. But it is because like you're an artist, you draw
mm.
all the time really well. By the way, shameless plug for Vicky. She can draw cool shit. So you would really appreciate the kind
Right,
of
yeah.
changes that they've done. The artwork is just it's just cool as hell. So Murdoch, he was born on June 6th, 1966. So his birthday is 6666. Very spooky.
Wow. Ooh, that's so
Um,
scary.
so edgy. he was he was supposedly born in a pub or at the back by the like garbage bins of a pub called the Three-Legged Dog. Um, but it was also rumored that his mom actually gave birth to him while still residing in a halfway house. Um, as an infant, he was dumped on the doorstep of his father's house one night, and his father found him on the way home from the pub. This is a picture of Murdoch as a baby with a little crow. Um, not any information. I don't have any information on that crow, but there is a crow later in the presentation that we'll talk about, so we'll just keep that in mind. His dad was terrible. His dad was abusive. He was an alcoholic. He Murdoch says that a lot of his addictions and like attitude came from that.
Mm,
His dad's name was Sebastian Jacob Niccals, or depending on who's asking, he might go by Jacob Sebastian Niccals. And he also, in addition to abusing his son, he exploited his son. So one of the main ways that he did that was the local pub had a talent show called Are You a Star? And Murdoch was forced to participate so his father could get drinking money. And probably the worst instance of this was he made Murdoch get into a Pinocchio costume and make him sing "I've Got No Strings" in front of all of his drinking buddies.
mm,
So yeah, pretty messed up childhood. The picture on the left is official artwork, and the one on the right I think is from like DeviantArt or something. There's not a lot of pictures of his dad, which makes sense because he kind of sucked. But as a kid going to school, here's a picture of Murdoch in school with his little cigarette and bowl haircut. He went to Sodsworth Comprehensive School, and he got a reputation for being truant, pulling pranks, bad hygiene, just a general like menace. And he was bullied quite a bit, both from other students and from teachers. Actually, he got raped by the school lunch lady at the age of 9. So he says that's the source of his constant bad mood. I would probably be in a bad mood if that happened to me as well. And like when you get bullied in school, there's always that like main bully, the
mm.
one that always picks on you. So his bully was named Tony Chopper, and he would always call Murdoch names. And finally, Murdoch snapped and got back at him and had a really like uh, intense insult. And Tony got upset and punched him in the nose and broke his nose. The reason why I brought that up is because as you look at pictures of Murdoch, you can like see especially when he's older, his nose is pretty crooked. He gets punched in the face a lot, and I think this was the first instance of him getting punched in the face. Just because he does stuff to get himself punched in the face, um, quite a bit. So he did dream of becoming famous. He wanted to leave. The place he was born at was called Stoke-on-Trent. Um, and, if you want to become famous, you have to become a Satanist, right? So he decided. Another thing with this, like, backstory, there's a lot of just, like, crazy shit that happens. And some of the stuff there's no explanation. It's just, like, how they said it. It's pretty unhinged.
Mm,
That's what makes it interesting, I think. So yeah, he became a Satanist. He made a deal with the devil, and his deal was that if he becomes a famous rock star, he'd give Satan his soul. And after they finalized the deal, Satan gave Murdoc his bass guitar. It's called El Diablo. That's what he's holding in that picture there. So he's got the little pentagram on his chest. And that's when he changed his middle name. So his original middle name was Alphonse, and he changed it to Faust. I don't know, Satanist thing, I guess. But he went to perform. I mean, he played in quite a few bands. There was like a long list of bands that he was in. None of them, real, of course, but he was not successful in any of them. So prior to Gorillaz, none of them went anywhere. Um, One thing I wanted to talk about was his skin color
Yeah, I was gonna bring
because
that up.
this is a good picture from Reddit. So, and this is actually a good picture of like how the art style changes a little because the far left is like phase 1 and that is phase 5 or maybe 7 because that almost looks like Cracker Island. But anyways, it seems that as the phases progress, his skin gets greener. So here's a weird point of contention, and people in the comments can chime in if they like. So that picture of Jamie wearing that fedora, it's actually from an interview that they did on YouTube. And a user or like a fan asked this question, and Jamie says that they asked like, why is Murdoch's skin green, basically, and he said, oh well, Murdoch is an immortalist. He's been around since the dawn of time, and his body is a rotting carcass, which doesn't align with the fact that he was born on June 6, 1966. Like that doesn't make him immortal. That just makes him older, right?
Right.
Um, so Jamie said that, and then there's other things that I've seen. People say that his skin is green because it's how he tans. So as he gets tanner, he gets greener. Someone else has said it's because of all the alcohol he drinks. It turns him green. In the wiki, it said that in his early 30s, when he was unemployed, he would get like a job seeker's allowance, and he would spend that all on underground kid fights, like a just a bunch of kids fighting, like a kid fight club, I
They
guess.
should start an underground kids mining club.
Yeah, give them little pickaxes. See who can get the most gold. You can bet on those kids. I do. Hey, I'm down. Um, you know what's funny? So my coworker was just telling me about something called Krampusnacht. So you know Krampus, right? Like around Christmas time, it's like a German. He's
Yeah.
kind of scary looking. So apparently, like Krampusnacht, Krampus like goes, he's out in the town, but apparently you get to like beat children, and like it's part of the celebration is you get to just like beat children.
Oh.
And I told my coworker because he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to this like, Krampus knock thing," and I was like, "Wait, so you get to beat children?" He's like, "Yep, sure do." I was like, "Oh man, I'm so jealous." And he's like, "Yeah, and they're okay with it." I was like, "That sounds like a great day." So yeah, kid mining, kid fights, beating kids, all all approved by Cold Beet Soup.
And this is where we get
Anyways,
canceled.
this is where we get demonetized or yeah, canceled. Just that's fine. So with this, he caught something called necrotizing fasciitis in the bathroom, and that turned his skin color green. And this comes from Matt Wake. Oh my gosh, I cannot say his name. Matt Wakeham. He had a Twitter. He worked on the design company during phase 1 of Gorillaz.
Mm.
So he was involved in Gorillaz, and that's what he said. But that counters what Jamie says. But what Jamie says counters what the backstory says. So there's all these different reasons. I don't know what the official one is. I saw another one where it was like, oh, it's because he sold, he made a deal with Satan and he's like rotting because he hasn't given Satan his soul or something like that. So people have come up with explanations. I wish I had a better one, but you can pick one that you like the most.
It's
It's
because
hard to
he's
say.
Beast Boy.
Yeah, because he's Beast Boy and he's slowly transforming.
Yeah.
But he's like super old, so he's like 50.
Beast Man.
Beast Boy past his prime. S so he the first or the way I guess the date that the band kind of started loosely was August 15th, 1997. They call it D-Day, but this was the day that Murdoch and a bunch of criminals were on like a spree of stealing stuff, and their next place they wanted to steal from was a place called Uncle Norm's Organ Emporium. They wanted to steal some synths, I think, and Stuart Pott, also known as Tootie, one of the other members of the band, was working there. And Murdoch launched his stolen car through the shop window, crashing directly into Stewart's face and putting him into a coma and giving him an 8-ball fracture in his left eye. Now, an 8-ball fracture is a real thing. I looked it up. The pictures are kind of scary because it's why Stewart's eyes are black. What it does is eventually like your eyes can either fill with blood or I think they fill with blood and then it like eventually just turns black. It can turn like your entire eye black.
Mm.
Like truly, like in real life. It's very creepy. So yeah, he's in a coma. He that happened to his eye, and after this incident, Murdoch was arrested. He was sentenced to 30,000 hours of community service, and he spent 10 hours a week caring for Stewart. That was part of his agreement. And so it was like a year later, Stewart's still in the coma, but Murdoch's like, I want to go out and do things. So Stewart's in the car with him, and he's like skidding around in his car because he's trying to impress a woman, like, oh, look at how cool I am. And Stewart goes flying through the windshield onto the curb, hitting his right eye with the same fracture, but he woke up from his coma. He can still see, but he's, not the sharpest guy. He was hit on the head twice. And Murdoch gave him the nickname 2D for like two dents on his head because he got hit.
Mm.
But that's when Murdoch recruits him to join the band as the lead singer and keyboard player. Now, I don't know why his eyes are white in this picture. They're black in most other artwork that I've seen. I don't know if it's just something the artist chose for that, but couldn't tell you why they did that. Usually his eyes are both, just fully black. Um Supposedly 2D is the first character that Damon and Jamie came up with, but sometimes they say it was Murdoch. So that's another like point of contention where at some places they say no, 2D was our first one. Others they say Murdoch was their first one. His character was loosely based on a longtime friend of Damon and Jamie's. His name was Stuart, actually. Stuart Lowbridge. He worked as Damon's stage engineer and live music coordinator. And originally, they held auditions for Tootie's voice because he's going to be singing all the music. But then after they were doing that, Damon realized, no, that's not the way I want to do it. I'll just sing Tootie myself. And I'll use like collaborators and guests. And I think that would embody the band better. And another little fun fact is that Tootie's birthday is exactly 10 years and 2 months younger than Damon, or after Damon's birthday. So people theorize that Damon Albarn chose Tootie's birthday to be like kind of close to his. So Tootie was born as Stuart Harold Tusspot on May 23rd, 1978, in Herefordshire, England. Um, but shortly after he was born, his father changed his name to Stuart Pott to prevent him from being bullied. But he was just nicknamed Stu Pot in school instead, so it didn't really work. He spent an undisclosed amount of time in Herefordshire, and him and his family moved to Crawley, West Sussex, following a lawsuit after he broke his piano teacher's hand. Um, Try to get some information on that, but all I could find was an interview with Stewart, and he was like, "Oh, we're not supposed to talk about that," so he never answered what happened. But I thought that was pretty interesting because he seems like a really friendly character, so I thought it was just kind of interesting that he would break his piano teacher's hand. And this is just a picture of him looking derpy because he is kind of derpy. Um, as a kid, he went to St. Wilfrid School. Supposedly, this is the same school that the band members from The Cure went to. His father David Tusspot was a mechanic and owned a fairground. And his mom, Rachel Tusspot, was a nurse. Her nursing came in handy because Stuart, when he was 11 years old, he fell out of a tree and hit his head, and he needed some migraine pills, so she gave him that. And when he fell out of the tree, all of his hair fell out, but it grew back in blue. So that's where his blue hair came from. He had this accident and his hair just grew back blue. This is a picture of him in school. I don't know what it is with all these kids having cigarettes in their hand or in their mouths, but I guess that's
That was the thing back then.
in the late yeah, in the 70s and 80s all the kids had cigarettes supposedly. He wasn't very smart. But he was a kind person. He loved music. His parents said that he would, listen to the Clash and the Human League and other musicians as a kid. And this is where his story lines up with Murdoc's when he gets hit by the car. So that's why I have a picture of him looking derpy because he got hit on the head twice. So once he got that nickname, he actually really liked it, and he stopped using his birth name of Stuart, and he just started like even signing letters and stuff, writing like 2D on it instead. And he gets hit on the head a lot, so that's just like a pattern for him. Yeah, I like that picture because it's like no, there's nothing going on there
Mood.
in his head, just like no thoughts. Um, So the next character is Russell. Russell Hobbs is the drummer of the band, or drummer percussionist. He is based on Jamie Hewlett's love for hip hop music. He's actually loosely based on Ice Cube,
Oh,
which is funny because Ice Cube's real life cousin is Del the Funky Homo Sapien. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a rapper.
no.
Um, yeah, he's a rapper, so I didn't know that they were cousins. And Del the Funky Homo Sapien does collaborate with Gorillaz. I'm gonna actually talk about it in the next slide. Um, but I just thought that was kind of a cool connection. Russell's character, he's born in Brooklyn, New York on June 3rd, 1975. He went to Xavier School for Young Achievers. He was very like well mannered, but he got expelled. Why? He attacked a couple students. Why did he attack students? Well, he was possessed by a demon.
Oh,
Yep. No explanation there. He just fell into a coma after that for the next 4 years. And at the end, the demon was exorcised from his body by a priest named Father Marin. Russell was in denial that any of this happened until he saw a picture of the words Russell was here graffiti written in his blood on the school walls. And he's like, oh, dang, I did that? That's crazy. So it gets better. Russell's story, actually, compared to like everyone else's story, I think Russell's story is the most like messed up. Uh, because of this part as well. Beyond the like demon possession thing, this part, outside of one night outside of a 7-Eleven, Russell's friends were all killed in a drive-by shooting by a gang. They were all wearing red hooded tops, but one of them was wearing a black hood. So Russell identified him as the Grim Reaper, and that's why I put that picture of the Grim Reaper on the slide. Interestingly enough, it was really hard to find pictures of the Grim Reaper from Gorillaz. There's like a picture of the Grim Reaper next to Tootie, but not with Russell, even though he's the one that haunts Russell most. Not really sure why that is, but it was really frustrating trying to find pictures. But after the shooting, the spirits of Russell's friends came to reside in his body, so he would get possessed by his friends. The most prominent one being Del the Ghost Rapper, who was played by Del the Funky Homo Sapien. So Del the Ghost Rapper, the picture is on the right. Um, when Russell gets possessed, his eyes turn milky white, and that's why you see his eyes go white. Um, and yeah, sometimes he'll have like different uh ghosts possess him and he'll start rapping. So that's Russell. Now, after being witness to a drive-by shooting, his family was like, "It's not safe for you here." So he was sent to the UK to live with his uncle and got a job working at this place. It's called Big Rick Black's Record Shack. And that's actually where he runs into Murdoc. Murdoc asks Russell for like an obscure record and then slips a bag over his head and kidnaps him and takes him out of the shop and brings him to Kong Studios, which is their first recording studio that they work out of. And Russell was so impressed with the music that Murdoch was making that he decided to stay.
Uh-oh.
So we got 3 out of the 4 band members. So we got the bass player, the singer, the keyboardist, singer and keyboardist, and the drums. But we still need a guitarist, and that's where Noodle comes in. Noodle was born in Osaka, Japan, on Halloween 1990. So she's a lot younger than everybody else. She spent a portion of her childhood as the subject of a classified Japanese super soldier project under
Oh,
the management of a scientist named Mr. Kyozo. It gets better.
bacon.
It's my favorite slide from this entire presentation. I'm very proud of it. There is a reason. If anybody watching like knows a little bit about Gorillaz backstory, they'll be like, "Oh, I understand." Um, so Noodle and 22 other children were trained to be soldiers
Be
for the
bacon?
Japanese military and government. Huh?
Be bacon?
What?
They were trained to be bacon?
No, no. Let me finish. Let me finish. They did this project to make them like little super soldiers, but they were deemed to be too dangerous and unstable for combat. So they scrapped the entire project, and then they ordered Mr. Kyozo to dispose of them all, aka kill them. So he killed the 22 child soldiers,
By
but when
turning
it
them
came to
into
Noodle,
bacon.
can you let me finish, please?
I'm trying to guess.
Please?
I'm trying to guess it right. You put the slide of bacon up.
Yeah, it was like supposed to be a suspenseful thing, you
Oh,
know.
okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
He did not turn them into bacon. That we know, maybe. Um, but he decided to spare Noodle. He put her in a state of amnesia through the use of verbal commands. And the phrase to put her in a state of amnesia was ocean
Water.
bacon,
Oh.
earth, air, fire. These are the 4 elements. Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Everything changed when the water bacon attacked.
The world was never the same. So, ocean bacon, that's where it comes from. Ocean bacon. Those were the magic words that wiped her memory. So, with her memory wiped, well, she can't really stay in Japan anymore, right?
Why?
She's supposed to be dead. He
Oh,
declared her dead. Kyozo said, "Yeah, no, she's dead. She's gone." So he puts her in a FedEx crate, and ships her to the United Kingdom. And she shows up on the doorstep of Kong Studios in 1998. So she, the day before, uh, Murdoch actually puts out like an ad looking for a guitarist, and just like that, Noodle shows up in a FedEx crate. They bring the crate inside. She pops out of the box and does like a guitar solo. She ends her solo with a karate kick. She says some words in Japanese, bows, and says the word noodle. So that's how they name her Noodle because she didn't speak any English. And since her guitar solo was so cool, they put her on the band. Now,
I have a question.
there's a pic. Uh huh.
She was a super soldier, right?
Yeah.
So what does the guitar have to do with
I don't know.
it? Okay.
There's no explanation. Like, there's she just plays guitar, I guess. Like,
Okay.
there's a lot of stuff like this where like I look up, well, what happened? And there's just no explanation.
Okay.
Welcome to my life this past week, just trying to understand what it all means. And honestly, the easiest thing is that I think they just chose like wild stories for each person to give
Mm.
them personalities and that's really it. Because it just like This isn't even like the craziest stuff that's happened so far. Um, it gets better. Just wait. I'm actually about to talk about something right now. So the picture on the right, 2D had a girlfriend. That's the picture that's on the slide, is him and his girlfriend, Paula Cracker.
Mm.
Paula Cracker was actually the first guitarist of Gorillaz. However, um, she was kicked out of the band after Russell caught her having an affair with Murdoc in the bathroom of Kong Studios. So she got kicked out. Noodle replaced her. So I guess that's not that crazy, but it just kind of. Oh, and Russell punched him in the face 5 times.
Mm. Mm.
Murdoc. He punched Murdoc in the nose 5 times. Breaking his nose even more. Um, so now the band has come together. We have all 4 members, and we can start with phase 1. They call it Celebrity Takedown. I think that's grabbed from they do have an autobiography that covers the first 2 phases. So the phase 1 is from 1998 till 2002. Um, I mentioned Kong Studios a couple times.
Mm.
This is a picture of it. Murdoch found this studio space. He looked at a website and it was advertised as a gigantic, disused, haunted studio in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, "This is perfect," and bought it and moved in.
Seems legit.
Um, huh?
Seems legit.
Yeah, I mean, it's great price. Middle of nowhere. So this is another interesting thing. So they changed their name from Gorilla to Gorillaz. Noodle was the one that recommended they change the name. So this is an old promotional picture before Noodle even joined. Um, and you can see Paula Cracker is on the far left. There's also a monkey on the cover. Who is
Mm.
that? That is Mr. Maggots. He plays the bongos. He did not stay in the
Nice.
band very
Oh.
long, but he was, yeah. And you could tell the artwork is because Murdoch looks a lot different.
Mm.
Even 2D looks a bit different. They all look pretty different, to be honest. So their first song was called Ghost Train, and that song still featured Paula and Maggots. Um, I think this is actually like the promotional artwork from that song, if I remember correctly. And Murdoch sent a copy of this song over to a guy named Mr. Whiffy Smithy at EMI. EMI Records is a real record company, but Mr. Whiffy Smithy is not real. So
Oh.
yeah, I know it's a cool name. Like I wish he was real. So several months later, they played their first show at Camden Brown House. That's the picture on the left. It's a pub. It's also not real. It ended prematurely due to a riot breaking out when they were singing their song Punk. That's the picture on the right, is just the album cover. I just like it because Noodle's on it, and I like Noodle. Whiffy Smithy was in the crowd, and he had a shotgun. He fired a couple rounds to disperse the crowd, and he made his way to the stage and signed them to a label. So they got signed. The next night, they went to their record label signing party. They got like this huge check, and that's where they met Damon Albarn. Damon went to become an influential part of the band and was Tootie's vocal coach. So it's kind of interesting because he worked himself into the story of Gorillaz. Jamie is worked into the story as well. So we're going to talk about him in a little
Mm.
bit too, but I thought that was kind of cool that they just like baked themselves into it. And another funny thing is Murdoch supposedly is very jealous of Damon and tries to poison him all the time and like steal his demos. And this was around the time that Mr. Maggots left. Supposedly he left due to creative differences. I just think I don't know. I think it was just one of those like the character didn't really stick maybe, and they're
Yeah.
like, ah, we're fine with just the 4. So they start to record their first album. The first album for Gorillaz is their self-titled album. So it was December 1998. They spent they started, and then they spent all of 1999 recording. After a year's worth of recording, they felt like they were still missing something, so they drafted in the guy that you see on the left. His name is Dan the Automator. He's a producer, to help provide like that little razzle dazzle that they were missing. And one of the songs that came to mind was Clint Eastwood. So initially, the song had Murdoc's vocals in it. Now, Murdoc's vocals are pretty bad. And Dan suggested, well, maybe we can replace his vocals with a rap section. And when they talked about this, this seemed to summon Dell, and that's why I put a picture of him on the right. So Del the Funky Homo Sapien does rap on Clint Eastwood,
Mm.
and that's kind of how that part came to be. Is Del got summoned out of Russell's body and came up with the rap part to Clint Eastwood. Um, so after that, Dan decided that they needed to finish off all the recordings in Jamaica. So for a month between April to May 2000, they recorded their final tracks in Jamaica. I don't
Mm.
know why. Maybe to relax, unwind, to get an explanation. And then they finished the production June 2000. And now that the album's finally recorded, they needed a music video to promote themselves. So they sourced a guy named he's Italian. The director's name is Paolo Scinbazio, to direct their music video for the song called Tomorrow Comes Today. But Scimbazio had never been on a film shoot in his life, and they decided to fire him because he was not, he was a mess. And they needed another director, so that's when Damon Albarn suggested his flatmate Jamie Hewlett, and Jamie was brought to Kong Studios. He agreed to direct the video, and he would do all of the band's videography and becoming their personal stylist. So that makes sense, having the illustrator get woven in.
Mm.
And that's a screenshot from the music video that Jamie directed. So this is phase one, Gorillaz. And then they released their EP, Tomorrow Comes Today. This was late November 2000, and the music video that they worked on. And then the next year, they released, or it was March, yeah, March 2001, they released Clint Eastwood. And that song was popular immediately. They hit the mainstream. And they thought, okay, well, let's also promote our album by doing a little bit of a tour. So that's Gorillaz Live. I put the picture on the right. So they were in the UK, France, and Ireland. Um, and yeah, they performed their first live gig on MTV. So it's kind of cool how like Damon and Jamie were watching MTV, and like not that much later they were on MTV. Well,
Now,
Gorillaz was on MTV.
when they performed, were they like, was it like these characters, or like was it just those two?
Yeah, so you brought up a good question. That did change. Um, at some point. I think in the beginning they just had them like on a screen
Mm.
and you could just like see them playing. But in later shows they added more of the band in front of it. I think it was like a mixed band and them to make it a more like immersive experience. Like they performed it was like a couple years later, I think it was phase 2. They performed at the Brit Awards and like you see them on the screen and it was actually Clint Eastwood. You see them on the screen and then they had these British rappers come out and do the rap part. So
Mm.
Dell didn't even come for that. They had this other like British group do it and the rap part was completely different. But since they're rapping on stage and then you see like 2D singing like I'm happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine. So that's kind of how they did that. So it's kind of interesting. Um I would wanna see it.
I wonder if
I'm just
now
curious,
they
like
do something like, you know how we saw ABBA and they had that like, I
yeah,
wonder
like
if
a
they,
hologram.
yeah. Hmm.
I'll definitely look at that for next week because Cracker Island, which is their most recent album, came out 2023,
Hmm.
last year. So, I can look at their, like, tour, how they did it, because I think that would be really interesting to see. Because yeah, with the technology now, like, you can really make them look
Mm.
like they're on the stage and like moving, but it's expensive. That's another thing. Like all this stuff that they're doing, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And it'll show up phase 3. Um, we'll talk about that quite a bit because all that promotional stuff, animating, it's a lot.
Mm.
Um, so they finally debuted the album March 26, 2001. So they're like doing some stuff concurrently because like Gorillaz Live 2001. Oh yeah, they do month first. Okay, so they did it later. I don't know why it said earlier. Anyways, they put the album out. It went uh I was gonna say it went viral, but that wasn't a thing back then. It was very successful. It charted number 3 on the UK charts, number 14 for US Billboard. It sold 7 million copies, which is pretty exciting. Um, Everybody in the band was celebrating the release except for Murdoc because his Winnebago was stolen the same day that the album was released. His Winnebago is his little RV. I put a picture of it on the right. Apparently, someone at EMI gave away the keys uh, and a copy of the album. And the person that it went to was some guy named Dr. Wurzel. And he started like a GeoCities page where he would like post photos of himself traveling around the world on in Murdoc's RV. So they did this thing on the website where Murdoc initiated a competition for the fans to find it. And during that time, Dr. Wurzel leaked Gorillaz' song Ghost Train and a picture of the band when Paula was still on there. So there's like some kind of like back and forth. And then finally, he was apprehended. I think it was like late 2001, and Murdoc got his Winnebago back. But I thought that was kind of cool how they were interacting with the fans from the start. August 2001, they went to Japan to perform live as part of their tour. But this made Noodle kind of sad because she didn't know about her past. Remember, she's got amnesia, so she's like
Mm.
8 years old in Japan again, just like very confused. She started to have nightmares because of her forgotten past, and to cheer herself up, she got a jetpack. So you can kind of see her, but the picture on the left is Murdoc like taking a selfie on the balcony, and she's in the back on the jetpack.
Oh, I see.
Uh, yeah, she's just like vibing. So like yeah, I just thought that was funny. They also noticed as they were performing in Japan that they weren't as popular there as they were in other parts of the world. So to try to boost their album sales and popularity, they came up with G sides, which is the picture, the album cover I put on the right, and it's just like a compilation album of like bonus tracks, B sides, and remixes, and it did really well. It sold like 500,000 copies, so it had that intended effect. Now we're getting into 9/11. We know what happened that day. The Twin
No.
Towers collapsed.
Oh.
What's so important about
Yeah.
9/11? Oh, did you mean 7-Eleven, like the convenience store? I mean, I don't. Um, Anyways, D12. Do you know D12? Because Eminem was on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. So D12 like actually got stranded in London. Um,
Oh.
so Gorillaz was like, "Hey, come to Kong Studios and record a song with us." And they made a song with D12 called 9/11, and that's the album cover on the left.
Hmm.
Uh, was them collaborating. I thought it was cool, but it was supposed to be a response to the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. Um, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Wait,
And
when did
then
that happen?
Christmas too, huh?
When did that happen?
What happened?
The terrorist attack in the country.
9/11?
Whoa, way.
That was bad.
Sorry, I tried.
That was a stretch, man. Come on. You can do better than that.
Can I though? Can I really?
I'm sorry. If you're still listening at this point, I'm so sorry.
They're like, all right, time to click off.
Click. Next. So, Christmas. 9/11. How do you segue that? You can't. Christmas 2001, they released a series of short videos called G Bites, and that's the picture I put on the right. And it lets fans gain insight on how the band members lived off screen. So, I just think it's cool that they're doing all of this like kind of promotional stuff, but also like you're getting a little bit more backstory to all the characters. The G Bites are still on YouTube if you want to watch them. They still exist. So they went on a tour after their tour in Japan. They went on a tour in the US, and they had issues right away because as soon as they landed, Murdoc got arrested. That's why I got a picture of his mugshot on the left. Apparently, there was an incident in Nebraska 15 years ago. Uh, couldn't find any information about that, so that's just another like plot point. But he did pay his bail. It was $500,000, and he did manage to make it on stage just in time for the show. Um, and throughout this tour, Noodle was having nightmares again. She was losing sleep. The band was like, "Oh, she's just tired. She's young, whatever." And beyond that, though, the tour was going okay until they went to Mexico on March 11th. The desks and monitors malfunctioned during the sound check because like the US uses 120, but everyone else uses 220, and if you swap out those voltages, shit burns out. So that happened. 2D had a spicy burrito the night before, so we had diarrhea. That's why I put a picture of 2D going like, yeah. And then I guess a fan jumped on stage, so Murdoc hit the fan on the head with his bass. Russell had a heart attack in the middle of the show. Noodle was just like triggered because she wasn't getting enough sleep. Someone threw a horse lung onto the stage.
Nice.
Giant inflatable gorilla head fell and crushed some kids. So yeah, they had a rough time. Um, did not go great for them in Mexico. Moving on. At the end of the US tour, they took a 6-month break in LA, and then they actually moved to a house in Hollywood Hills. That's why I put like this picture of Gorillaz on the Hollywood sign. Because I actually couldn't find a picture of the house anywhere. I think it's just because it's fictional, but they try to make their own movie. Um, they got a bunch of scripts proposed to them from like different writers and directors. But they either like people didn't like it, they'd either reject it or let it pile up. Murdoch was also trying to like get like host parties and have celebrities visit, but the other members of the band didn't really like it because they thought the celebrities saw them as a gimmick, um, and like not taking them too seriously. Finally, 3 months after they got to LA, they decided, okay, we got to pick a director. So they picked this guy named Alfred C. Klinker. Um, he was not a good director. They started filming the next day, and even though they didn't have a script, Klinker they didn't actually have a script. So Klinker was like, I watched this movie. We're just gonna make up a story on the spot because I saw this movie where they did this, so clearly we can do this as well. Um, which was not really working well for them. They had a really intense shooting schedule, but they did manage to leave LA a couple times. And the picture on this slide is about one of those times. So both the times they left LA, they went to a music festival. And the second music festival, at the end of the gig, a fan handed Murdoch a record to sign, but the record was not from Gorillaz. It was from someone known as SpaceMonkeyz. So apparently, what had happened was 3 monkeys who were mutated offsprings of lab monkeys that were sent up to space during the Cold War came back to Earth, stumbled upon Kong Studios, and 2D left the studio's front doors unlocked. So the monkeys broke in, stole some of the master tapes from the Gorillaz album, and like reworked the entire album. So it's kind of like a remix album.
Mm.
And they called it Laika Come Home, because they were trying to contact their spiritual leader, Laika. Laika is not a person. Laika is the first dog that was ever sent to space. So there were just a bunch of remixes. That this is like a real album, by the way, and like the people that play the SpaceMonkeyz, they're like real British producers and musicians that worked on it. None of the names I recognize, so I didn't include them. But yeah, it was like such a random side quest. But yeah, Murdoc was angry because he didn't know this album came out. So picture of the SpaceMonkeyz is just on the left, and then the actual album cover is on the right. So
Hmm.
yeah, side quest. Moving on.
Right?
There's like no way. Some of this stuff I like can't segue because I'm just like, well, that happened, and then I just like go to the next thing because it's just like, okay. So they come back to LA. Alfred Klinkler again changed Clinker, sorry, changed the script. He had a whole new vision. He's like, okay, we're gonna get some elephants, and use like a herd of elephants in it. And the band was like, enough, we're firing you. Like, we're done. We're not doing this. Um, Murdoch still wanted to be an actor though, and he got a role in an adventure series called Shoot to Kill. That's what the picture was. But he actually got recast at the very last minute. So they're like, okay, we're fine. We've been disappointed time and time again. So we're gonna check into a Hollywood motel. We're gonna do this movie ourselves. This did not work out. They were fighting a ton. Um, and it eventually escalated so badly that Murdoch tried to strangle 2D to death. And Russell and Noodle broke up the fight, but Murdoch was sick of it and walked out of the motel, and Gorillaz ended. The band just like disbanded. And that was that. And that's phase one.
Nice.
Phase two, it's called Slow Boat to Hades. It's from 2004 to 2008. And this covers Demon Days, their second album. So Murdoch, when he left, he went to Mexico. He's like, I need a break. I'm gonna get some sun, relax. And he decided to go to this brothel, and he would use fake checks to pay. One of the videos I watched said like that it wasn't a check, but he used fake money with his face on it, and that's how he would pay. Um, and eventually he got arrested and he got sentenced to 30 years in La Mesa State Prison. So that's a picture of him in prison. Um, when he was in prison, he met some cellmates who taught him some black magic, and he got himself a pet raven named Cortez. We're going to talk about Cortez a little bit because he's an interesting character. So, Cortez looks really similar to the raven that was on his stroller, but they are not the same raven. People have theorized that they're somehow related. But Cortez is cool because you actually hear him squawking on one of the songs in Demon Days. The song is called Oh Green World, and I listened to it because I actually today at work I listened to Demon Days from start to finish, and it's a great album. But yeah, you do hear a crow squawking, or sorry, raven squawking, and that's said to be Cortez. He's also he also has like a lot of appearances in Phase Two. He's on the intro of the website. He's on the cover of their autobiography. We're gonna get to it in a later slide, so you'll see a picture of it. And then he shows up in Murdoch's room a lot. Um, Beyond that, you don't really see him much more, but like phase two, you see him a lot. And Murdoch likes to feed him eyeballs. That's why I have a picture of him eating an eyeball on the
Hmm.
slide. Um, Now Murdoch's in jail. The next person to leave was Noodle. She was tired of not knowing what's going on with her past, so she goes to Japan. She checks into one of those capsule hotels and starts her search, and that's a picture of her in the capsule hotel with her little Game Boy. Uh, Tootie was the next one to leave. He goes to LA. He hangs out with some celebrities. He even joins the Viper Room Club, which is like an actual club in Hollywood. And then he moved into a place with an actress named Britt Eklund. I didn't know who she was. I looked her up, but she is like a Swedish actress. And they did not get on very well. So he was tired of living in LA and moved back to the UK to work at his father's fairground. So this is a picture of him at the go-karts. Um, his ego got a boost. So Murdoch abuses 2D a lot. And I think that after he kind of gets separated from, or I mean, Murdoc also tried to kill him. He started to just kind of like revive, and he started to get a resentment for Murdoc. He was not so much of a fan of his abuser anymore. And then we got to talk about Russell. Russell was in LA for a while, but he was haunted by the Grim Reaper, who eventually banished Dell from his body. So that was nice. But Russell was approached by Ike Turner. Yes, Ike Turner, Tina Turner's husband, offered Russell from Gorillaz to live in his basement to recover from being haunted. And Russell decided to record demos for his own solo hip hop album, but he saw demons flying out of the speakers as he was recording. He like hallucinated them, so he's like, this is bad juju. So he decides to bury his demo tapes. So this is a picture of Russell in Ike Turner's basement, uh, kind of going through it. He had a rough time. Um, Pivoting back to Noodle, Noodle searched for a year to find out about her history. She couldn't find anything. She was about to give up, and she goes to a sushi bar in downtown Hong Kong. And the waiter calls for an order of ocean bacon. And when he does that, all of her memories come back. And she sees Mr. Kyozo. That's a picture of him and young Noodle on the right. He was working as a chef at that restaurant. She finds out, her whole backstory. And she can now speak English fluently 'cause she has all of her memories. And she does return now that she has all the answers she's looking for. She comes back to Kong Studios, and the building is a hot ass mess. It's infested with zombies. This is a picture of her right outside of Kong Studios with a monkey, I guess, that she picked up from Japan. Didn't get any backstory on the monkey, but she's just chilling. She's like, "Yep." And she decided to use the security room as like a safe house as she slowly cleaned the building out of all those zombies. And now that she knows English, she was watching TV to pass the time, and she realized, like, oh my gosh, society's being fed a bunch of manufactured crap. And she started writing Demon Days. So she put the concept of Demon Days together, and finally, February 2004, she cleared Kong of all the undead, and she started to uh, reach out to her bandmates and try to bring the band back together. So Murdoc, he was in prison still, but after being there for about a year, he's like, okay, I'm sick of this. So he teamed up with his cellmates and escaped. He returned to that brothel, did that same crime one more time with the fake checks, and then flew back to England. And then Noodle texted the other bandmates, and they all came together in Kong Studios, and they started recording the next day. So the pictures I have on the slide are like phase 2 promotional art on the left, and then the Demon Days album cover on the right. And as they're recording, they asked the producer Danger Mouse to help out. So Danger Mouse is the guy on the left. He's interesting. So the way that Damon Albarn found Danger Mouse was Danger Mouse put out an album called The Gray Album. What he did was take samples from Jay-Z's Black Album and the Beatles' White Album and put it together. So I think he like used the instrumentals from Jay-Z's and the vocals from the Beatles and made the Gray Album. And Damon heard it and was like, "You need to work on Gorillaz with me." So he did that. And then I looked at other stuff he's produced because he produced an ASAP Rocky album. He produced At Long Last ASAP. Um, because ASAP Rocky had an album called Long Live ASAP
Mm.
like 2 years before that. So I always get confused with those two. But that's the one where he has Canal Street. Every day I spend my time drinking wine. I don't know if you know that one. M's. Uh,
I only
I
know
don't
a
know if
few
do you,
ASAP Rocky songs.
oh, Holy Ghost, LSD. Excuse me? I said excuse me. Electric Body with Schoolboy Q. I mean, it's a great album. You should listen to Ace like old ASAP is
What
good
songs
stuff.
do I have by this?
Yeah. Um
Let's
so
see.
yeah, what's that?
I want to see. Hold on. I'm gonna see what what songs I do know. Let me look at my Spotify
Oh,
real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, yeah. I'm curious.
Let's
You
see.
probably know One Train or Fucking Problem. You probably know I love bad bitches, that's my fucking
Goldie,
problem. Yeah,
Live
Goldie.
Fast.
Live
Uh,
fast.
yeah, it's Alan Walker, ASAP Rocky.
Oh, I don't think
It's
I
a
know that one.
PUBG song. Uh,
Oh.
Fucking Problems, Hands
Yep.
on the Wheel, and
Push a bit, little bit,
Good for
roll
You
it
with
up.
Selena Gomez.
Huh. It's an interesting spread
Yeah.
of ASAP. I don't know a couple of those. Couple of those, but Hands on the Wheel is great.
Mm.
Hands on the Wheel is like one of my favorite. Um, I love that sample. Um, yeah, but yeah, so he produced one of the ASAP Rocky albums, which I thought was kind of cool. Um, and the whole purpose, the like story behind Demon Days was to depict a post 9/11 world, and each track deals with a different topic slash demon. Um, Noodle's concept behind this album was that Gorillaz is not just a marketing ploy gimmick, as many critics called them, especially with their first album. She's like, we're more than that. So they finished recording November 2004, and about a month later, they released a music video for the song Rocket, and Noodle also set up a Search for the Star contest, which you see the promotional picture on the right. And this is where fans could submit themselves doing a talent. I think it was like an audio piece and yeah, it was a video or a piece of artwork to the Gorillaz website, and they use that in later Gorillaz like media. I think they implemented it into like some music videos or something like that, but I thought that was really cool. They also launched a campaign called Reject False Icons, which encouraged fans to reject false celebrity icons. So they were like stickers and you could like put them on like models or celebrities. Um, oh, and then they renovated Kong Studios. So they had new rooms and there was like mini games on their site for the fans to explore and interact with. So they really like pulled out all the stops, and then they released the Feel Good Inc., which the picture is on the left, and as you know, that's like their number one song. To
Mm-hmm.
this day, it is their number one song. So it replaced Clint Eastwood with their most popular song. I think they even used like Feel Good Inc. in the iPod commercial. You remember those like iPod commercials where it was like the colors and like the people
Yeah,
just
yeah.
dancing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had that in Feel Good. I don't know. Do you know who De La Soul is?
No.
They're an older hip hop trio, but that's who the feature is on Feel Good Inc. So that was
Mm.
a big deal as well. And the really interesting thing about Demon Days is that it actually was released in Japan first. So they released it May 11th, 2005 in Japan, and then like several weeks later released it in the UK and the US. I don't know why they did it that way, but I thought that was kind of interesting. But it did very well. Listed as like got best album listings and stuff like that. So one way to promote the album in the US is they came up with the idea called the Demon Detour, which was a series of live radio shows where they could come across, stop by, major cities. Um, and that's the picture I put on the right. And I don't know if you can read it from here, but Chicago was one of them, and they did Q101. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know if
see
you ever
it.
listened to like Q101 back in the day, but I don't know if it still exists as a radio station, but that's where I saw Linkin Park. Q101 used to do a concert, and you could get like I swear my tickets were like $20 to $30,
I
and
went.
there was just like lawn seats, but
Yeah, I did one. It was like B96 or something. Summer B Bash.
yeah,
One I forgot.
yeah, yeah. When the radios would like host those concerts, it
Mm-hmm.
was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, simpler time. Anyways, so they invited some of their guests from the album to record with them because they had to like being a virtual band, I think they wanted to record everything beforehand before going to all the places. So they booked a place called Sarm West Studios. It's in London. And some interesting stuff happened when they started working at SARM Studios. They got some like weird phone calls and disturbing messages that eventually escalated into death threats. And then while they were on the detour, their tour bus was shot at every night. Um, band was trying to figure out who would shoot at them. Like, was it Paula Cracker? Because we kicked her from the band. Was it Skinbatio or Clinker? Maybe the Dr. Wurzel because we took the Winnebago back. Um, Russell decided that he needs something to keep him calm, so he decided to take up taxidermy, and that's why I put that picture on there
Nice.
because I was like, what a random fact, but I like that. Um, and the band eventually got really tired of being shot at every night. So they asked their tour manager, Jimmy Manson, to see what he could do about the shootings, and that's the guy on the right. We're going to talk about him more as well. And the next night, the shooting stopped, just like that. Very weird. So the tour continued on. After the Demon Detour, they returned to Kong Studios, where Noodle actually came up with a secret plan for the second Demon Days music video, and she recorded the entire music video herself. It was for the song Dare, and it did really well when they released it. They also went to oh my gosh, I can never say it. Not Namib. It's either Namib or Nabib. No, Namib. Because Nabib would not make sense. So I think it's Nabib Desert. It's a desert in Africa. But they recorded the music video for their song Dirty Harry. And if you watch the video, they're like in the desert. So I thought that was kind of cool. And they did MTV Cribs. They did an episode where they did a tour of Kong Studios. Here's like a screenshot. It's on YouTube still. That's where I took the screenshot from. And Christmas Day, Murdoch delivered the Queen's speech. Um, I don't know how familiar you are with the Queen's speech in England.
Yeah, every Christmas.
Um, yeah, it's every year, I think. Basically, the Queen delivers a speech he delivers a speech, but the content is approved by like the government and the
Mm.
cabinet, but it just talks about their policies and legislation that they're going to do for like the new parliament session. So Murdoch just like did his own. That's also still on YouTube, and there's like a little puppet Murdoch, and he's got a little crown on his head, and it's pretty entertaining. um I like to bring up this stuff because especially when we're going to talk about it next week, like they're doing a lot of stuff for uh I guess it is like a marketing thing, but I think it also adds like a little bit to the character's depth as well. And they seem to have been investing a lot of like time and money into doing these things,
Mm.
right? Now, they decided to work on their final music video. Um, and okay, this is where things get a little interesting. So, Jimmy Manson, their manager, he actually tried out, like way back before, he tried out to be a guitarist, but he got rejected when Noodle arrived. He stalked the band for a while, and then he finally got the gig to be the tour manager. He revealed that he was the one behind the shootings, and he pitched the idea to Murdoch to kill off Gorillaz and cash in on the success they've had so far. And Murdoch's like, yeah, sure. We should definitely do that. We'll do it in a music video. We're gonna let's do it for the song El Mañana. So they pitched the idea of Noodle would be on this flying windmill island. So Feel Good Inc. I don't know if you've ever watched that music video, but she is on this island, the windmill island.
Mm.
So like, yeah, let's use the same island, but the island's gonna be shot down by helicopters. But Noodle's gonna have a parachute, and the helicopters have fake bullets, so she'll just like escape. And the rest of the band was like, sounds kind of intense. I'm not sure how we feel about that. But they eventually gave in to the idea, and Noodle was actually ready to take another break from Gorilla. She's like, my stuff is already packed. Once we finish this music video, I'm out. Like, I'm done with you guys. So Murdoch and Jimmy hatched this plan where Manson would actually hide inside the tower with guns and then come out and shoot Noodle, but like for real. And what ended up happening was they were shooting the video, but halfway through the video, the island was shot down and exploded, but they couldn't find Noodle anywhere. And they saw a used parachute, but everyone panicked. And Manson never came out to shoot Noodle either because Murdoch double crossed Manson, locked him in the Windmill Island. So when the Windmill Island crashed, Manson died as well. Because Murdoch was like, well, it was either him or us, so I'm going to choose Gorillaz, obviously. Um, and he also lied about Noodle and was like, oh, yeah, Noodle escaped. She's fine. She's chilling in the Maldives. We don't have to worry about her. But in reality, they didn't know where she was. She was missing, maybe dead. And this picture was popular at the time because you see this like little parachute and they're like, is that Noodle? People were wondering where Noodle was. So up until this moment, like all the music videos, they had like little, fun like story stuff, but nothing so heavy. Like if you didn't watch any of the Gorillaz music videos, you're not missing any story, right? Like 21 Pilots, they're telling a story through some of these music videos.
Mm.
And if you don't watch the music video, you kind of miss that story component. You can obviously read it later. This is like early 2000s time where like, forums are still pretty new. So if you didn't watch this music video, you wouldn't really know like what happened to Noodle. So I thought that was interesting that phase two was like major plot point happening in a music video. Once she disappeared, Kong Studios once again began to like fall apart because she was really the only person keeping the building together. And shortly after the video, Damon and the live band performed at New York's Apollo, but 2D and Murdoch attended from the audience. So like they had the live band play, but not the actual band members play. Um, and after these gigs, 2D and Russell left because they're like, Noodle's gone, F all this. Murdoch stayed behind in the building of Kong Studios. This is a picture of him on the right, actually, with like the skulls and stuff. Um, 2D went to Jamaica for a vacation. Then he went to Oxford and got a degree from their law school. And Russell went back to Brooklyn. And later that year, they released their autobiography. It's called Rise of the Ogre. And that's the picture on the left. And that's where you can see Cortez on the cover as well. And this autobiography covers all of phases one and two. The same day this autobiography comes out, they receive an emergency transmission from Noodle in Kong Studios. Murdoch hears it, and it sounds like it's being transmitted from hell. So Murdoch has a spell book and opens a portal down to hell, wanders off trying to find Noodle, but he can't find her. So he fails and comes back to Kong Studios. Um, he After the rescue attempt, he tried to put Kong Studios up for sale because it was overrun with zombies yet again, and he went on like a giant bender all over the world. During that time, he released another compilation album called D Sides. That's the picture you see on the left, which is the same thing as the B side as the G Sides one that came out a while ago with like bonus tracks, B sides. Um, and it that one did pretty well. And then not long after that, there's a British director named Sari Levy. She was going to work on a Gorillaz documentary called Bananas, and that's the picture that you see on the right. And that was supposed to cover like the behind the scenes and creative process of the band's first two albums from the perspective of Damon and Jamie. And the documentary premiered at the Berlin Film Festival, and Murdoch responded with like a drunken, threatening voice message to Siri, and then they started like an online war. But Siri leaked an audio recording of Murdoch having sex with an unknown woman, and then after that, he called off the war. In that audio recording, he like promises the woman that she's like, so I'll be on the next Gorillaz album. He's like, yeah, yeah, sure, definitely. uh, it gets better. Don't worry. There's still more. because Murdoc is in debt. He, tried to invest his money. He fell for some pyramid schemes, and he was in some serious debt. He paid a lot of expenses in Demon Days. I mean, one of the music videos, he crashes a whole island, right? So he's like, I have a great idea. I'm gonna sell old and broken firearms, but pretend that they're brand new to like the underground, and I'll make some money off of it. Unfortunately, some of those weapons went to someone named Malthus, who was a devil, not the devil, just a devil. And he realized he got scammed, so he sent a group of mercenary pirates named the Black Clouds, who you see a picture of on this slide, after Murdoch. Murdoch believed that they were the ones that shot down that Windmill Island in the video shoot, but it was actually revealed later that it was the Department of Musical Corrections, the DMC. They are a secret organization that operates undercover in the music industry. And they've been keeping track of Gorillaz because Gorillaz kind of is a threat to their goals of harmony, obedience, and order. It gets better. After Murdoch's bender, since he's low on the money and no one's buying Kong Studios, he's like, let me just do something dramatic and burn down Kong Studios and then just cash in on the insurance money and then blame the fire on like some kids or something. So he did that. And then he attended an opera that Damon Albarn and Jamie Hewlett worked on as an alibi. So people couldn't tie him to the fires. What was the opera? It was called Monkey Journey to the West. We talked about Journey to the West on this podcast not that long ago. Um, Interestingly enough, Damon and Jamie, they were gonna do something like Gorillas related for this, but it didn't really pan out. But they did go to like China for it, and Damon worked on like the music for it. The little picture on the right is from the opera. Um, there's no footage of this opera, by the way. Uh, there's still a soundtrack, but that's the only way you can watch it. Or I guess not watch it, but listen to it. So I thought that was kind of interesting how we talked about Journey to the West, but it shows up yet again in pop culture in a different way. So that's kind of cool. Well, Murdoch met with Mos Def. You know Mos Def?
Yeah, the rapper.
Yeah, he's a rapper. Okay. I was like, did I lose her? It's a
No,
lot of
no,
stuff.
no,
This is
no.
the last slide, so don't worry. There's nothing else after this. Um, so Murdoch meets Mos Def at a place called the Box Club, and Mos Def is like, there's this guy. His name is the Boogieman, and he's the embodiment of all evil. That's the guy that you see on the slide, the Boogeyman. Murdoch was like, no, it's a bunch of malarkey. But then he found out that Mos Def was right. The Boogeyman was sent after Murdoch by Satan himself. Why? Because Satan never got Murdoch's soul. Murdoch is now famous, but he never gave him the soul. And the Boogeyman works with Malthus, that other devil, and the Black Clouds. So Murdoch's like, shit, I gotta flee to the UK, find a new headquarters, and be hidden away and safe so they can't catch me. And that's how phase 2 ends.
Wow.
Any questions?
No?
God, I hope I did it justice. I apologize to anyone. I've had a very, very busy week, and it's so hard to like keep heads and tails of all of this. It's just a lot.
It's a
It's a
lot, but
lot.
it's interesting.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
The world that they created is pretty cool. Um, and like seriously, listen to Demon Days from start to finish. It's a pretty cool it's a pretty cool album. I actually started listening to them. Like if you listen to This Is Gorillas on Spotify, you
Mm.
can get a good mix of stuff from all their albums. Um, yeah, and Plastic Beach, which is phase 3, has a really interesting story. So I'm excited to talk about that. It gets really lore heavy or lore backstory. I don't know, but
I want to know
yeah,
where Noodle
I
is.
Can't tell you. Tune in next week and find out. I think Noodle is probably my favorite because she's the one that like holds them all together.
Seems about right.
Yeah, and I like her story. I think her story's pretty cool. They
Yes,
all have like really
I don't get the whole secret super soldier and plays guitar. I'm like, okay.
You can have hobbies. You can be a super soul. You think Captain America doesn't have hobbies?
No, he's dead.
He's just
Thanks for reminding me.
doing Captain America things, and that's it. Oh my gosh, it's an hour and a half. Jesus Christ, this
Mm.
episode. And I was like, well, maybe I can fit it
Yeah, you're
all.
like, maybe I could do it all in one.
Yeah, and because when I ran through like their backstories, I was like, okay, I still have some time. And then I started getting into the phases, and I was like, oh, this is a lot.
Mm.
Like, how do I bring this up? SpaceMonkeyz, okay. Uh, zombies, okay.
Yeah, and then the whole ending of phase two. Oh, let's just
Boogieman.
yeah, Boogeyman, or like, oh, let's burn down the place for insurance money, but let's go to an opera for now.
Because it wasn't me. I was at an opera
Yeah.
with Damon. I work with Damon and Jamie for Gorillaz. The perfect crime. Perfect crime. Well, I hope, I don't know. What was like your thoughts or your favorite part or something that stood out to you? There's so much crap.
There was a lot.
Yeah.
My mind's still blown that they that something happened on 9/11.
On what?
9/11.
Yeah. I didn't know they had a 9/11
I
song.
didn't
I
know they
actually
did
still
one with
haven't listened to it.
D12. I'm like,
Yeah. Pretty cool, right?
yeah.
They do a lot of collabs. Like I sent you that Stevie Nicks song.
Hmm.
That's from Cracker
Yeah,
Island.
I added that on my Spotify.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
Mm.
It makes me think of that bunny gif, the bunny that's like this,
Mm.
the one that's just dancing. That was funny, actually. My friend yesterday at work, I was like, "How's your day going?" And she sent the picture of Michael Scott just like putting his face in his hands like this. And she's like, "How's your day going?" And I just sent her the bunny. I'm like, "La la." I'm just vibing, man. Complete opposite. Because the thing, like, a lot of people have been out, so
Right, yeah.
it's been chill. I've been able to, there's a tool I want to learn how to use. So I've just been like working on the academy, like the little
Mm.
modules and stuff. Um, so it's really peaceful. And then I got headphones so I could listen to music at work. So I've just been vibing
Yeah, and then
at work.
for the basically next month, is just gonna be like people are out until after New Year's. It's just
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have someone that's out for like most of December. They're just like not here.
they're like deuces.
Yeah. So, no, I like the holidays. I like to stick around because I can like catch up on other things
Mm.
and still get paid.
Yeah, today for
Not
me
have to,
was a
well,
chill day.
yeah, great. Because you had a half day, right?
Well, till like 3, but till lunchtime I did work, and then the app when lunch came, we had lunch, and then we drank Hennessy and just sat around.
Was your dad there? Whenever Hennessy's there, your dad just shows up like,
He's like,
hey, how's it going?
"Hello, I'm here."
It's like, ooh. Oh my God.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I had a call because I got done at 12.
mm,
I had a call at 11, and after that, I think I was done at like 11:20. I had a couple action items, so I I got to them because I was like, I want to take care of this because I won't be in the office Friday.
Mm.
I'll be working from home, so I need to like take care of this now. So I did those, and then it was like 11:45, 11:50, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Right.
Like that's
Gotta
gonna be
collect my
12.
stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna take a
Turn off the
while.
computer. That takes
Yeah,
some
I gotta
time.
log off and talk to my coworker real
Yeah, say
quick. I was
happy
like, well,
Thanksgiving, you know.
yeah, hope you got a nice holiday. And I actually wore this at work.
Aw, what does it say? I can be trusted with nuclear launch codes.
Yeah, 'cause I thought it would boost, brighten people's days. To see a puppy brightens my day. So, well, I hope you guys are having a nice Thanksgiving.
If you live in
And you're in a
America.
food coma at this point. Oh yeah, if you're not in America, I hope you're having a nice Thursday. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much. We got a lot of support on some of our last few episodes, so that was really cool to see you guys enjoying the content that we make. And we'll see you next week for more Gorillaz lore. It's gonna get crazier. Hold on to your butts.
What if you don't have a
Okay,
butt?
bye.
Alright, bye!